Anna, go to class. Go to class. Good evening. We're going to get started because it's 6:30. Thank you for being here. Appreciate those that are joining online. Good to see everybody. We've got quite a few prayer requests and announcements, and I'm going to go as quickly as I can with these. As most of you know, Shelly Eric has been diagnosed with stage 1B melanoma and is going to be undergoing surgery on November the 18th for that. Tommy Hanna is a neighbor of Eva Gleams, requests prayers for her surgery on November the 11th. We continue to ask for prayers for Brian Hatley, for James and Edith Jones, for Ann Scalzo, and for Zach Wilson. We, of course, want to always pray for Shep Knight, but if you were here for our trunk or treat, Shep was able to be here. So they wheeled him around as a black widow that no one was allowed to touch. It was funny. Hattie Shell continues to undergo her cancer treatments at home, and just please pray for them with all the things going on there. Two new prayer requests are our sister Annette Stokes has been diagnosed with cancer, and they're awaiting a treatment plan for her, and they're deciding about whether she'll be treated here or whether she'll be treated down in Texas with her daughter. And so I think there's a lot of questions and prayers needed for Annette. Also, our sister Emma Wilson fell and broke her ankle this past week, and so we want to pray for her as well. I have a couple of announcements as well. Remember that daylight savings time ends this weekend, so set your clocks back on Saturday. Although these announcements are kind of defunct because all our clocks are on our phones now at this point. But the worship service at Hearthside Assisted Living has been moved to a different date for November. The Grief Share here at Oliver Creek is going to be hosting a one-time free session for people who are suffering with loss, especially during the holiday season. It'll be on November the 10th, and so share with anyone that might benefit from that opportunity. Gage and Olivia Gregory are one of our newer young adult couples, and I'm spilling the beans to the Wednesday crowd, but they're placing membership, so we're either going to announce that Sunday or next Sunday. But we missed their wedding, so we just missed it by a few months. So we're going to give them a belated wedding shower, and so we would love to have people be involved with that so we can get to know them better and get them plugged in here. So because they're settling into an apartment and both are in school, all gift cards would be helpful for them. On Wednesday evenings, we're doing some special things on the next couple Wednesday nights. Tonight, I'm going to offer prayer in a minute because our brother Emmanuel Madu is going to be giving a report about their mission efforts in Africa this last summer. Next Wednesday night, Alex Lopera is going to be doing a report on the work in Argentina since we picked up this new work for the couple that's at Alex's dad's church. So Alex will be speaking next Wednesday night. And then on the 17th, we'll have a prayer and singing Thanksgiving type service because the following Wednesday we won't have any services on the 24th. The last thing I want to announce is a Wednesday announcement, and this is the first night we're making this announcement. We would love to start back our Wednesday meals after the first of the year. Those were a great time for everybody to get to eat together, but we had trouble pre-COVID getting enough people to help sign up on cooking teams to cook beforehand. So we're going to start those sign-ups now. So if you're interested in maybe helping with a cooking team, let Rod and Sherry Ulrich know. And also if you could help with cleanup or setup afterward, let Rod and Sherry Ulrich know. We're going to be announcing that for a few weeks so we can hopefully kick that off after the first of the year. So that's all the announcements that I have. I want to pray for our brother Emmanuel and then give him the rest of the time tonight to do this report. So let's pray together. God, we come to you tonight and we ask that you would please be with all those that we've mentioned tonight who request and need our prayers. We pray for Shelly and for Tommy and Brian, James and Edith, Shep, Ann, Hattie, Annette, Emma, and Zach. We lift up all these names and these situations to you, and we pray for the God of healing and comfort to be present in all these situations. Father, we thank you so much for the new families that you're bringing to Oliver Creek. We thank you so much for the blessing of being a member of this church. We ask that you would just be with us as we seek to always be transformed into the image of Jesus and to serve and love and bless and glorify your name. Tonight, we especially pray for our brother Emmanuel. We're so thankful for the work that the Madus do locally, but also in their mission work to Africa. And we just pray that you would bless him during his presentation tonight, and that you would bless our hearts to be open as we learn about the good work that's happening around the world for the gospel. We pray all this now in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I was supposed to give a thumbs up. Okay. Thank you. Well, good evening, brothers and sisters. I appreciate your time, and those of you listening online, coming out here in the semi-cold to listen to the report that we have to give on the African mission work. And my sympathy goes to the elders and Garrett. They've heard this before, so they're going to hear it the second time again. So I'll try to make it more interesting than the last time. So yes, we embarked on this mission work. We had to postpone the one we planned to do during the COVID, so we couldn't go during that period. So we had to postpone it to this year, in June. So right after I ended school classes this June, the next day we were off on a 14-hour flight to Africa. I mean, literally the next day we left. And it was an interesting trip. I will save you the juicy part, that what happened at the airports and the long lines and the COVID testing and the almost missed flights. So we'll save all that to go straight to what happened. There will be some preambles to start you off with, so you can get some background story from what the mission work is all about. And I'll quickly say this. I've been a teacher for almost 26 years, and I'm used to students stopping me halfway to tell me, or in between my presentation, to ask questions, or to just tell me they didn't understand a word I said. So it doesn't hurt my feelings. So if you have any question or you want to stop me, please let me know. So evangelizing Africa is not as easy as one would have expected or one would think, because there's some slight misconception about the continent. So I'm going to present some of the challenges that this involves and how we're hoping to overcome these challenges in the work we do. Africa, as you can see, contrary to what some maps may show you, it's a pretty huge continent. It covers almost all the different continents in just fit together. So this tells you how wide and large it is. If you dream of evangelizing it, you are attempting to evangelize more than 3 continents at once. It's like going through Asia, the United States, India, Europe, all together. So when we talk about evangelizing Africa, we're talking about more than 3 or 4 continents all fit together into one in terms of land mass. It's also made up of 54 countries, each with different presidents and leaders, and you need different passport, visa to move from place to place. They have different expectations, different rules in certain places. I joke with my students sometimes when they ask me, who is the president of Africa? And I say it's Nelson Mandela. They say, oh, that's interesting. So there's that mindset as if it's one continent with just one president and we all just do kumbaya together and live in harmony. It's not anything like that. And it has its challenges because we have leaders who have robbed the continent dry. I mean, the former president of my country, I think, stole almost $50-something billion before he left. So we have these dictators. When they come in, they refuse to leave, and it's a rich continent with so much oil and natural resources. But the leaders, I mean, recently, the president of Sudan just got overthrown by a coup. So it has political issues and geographical issues around it. So it's a challenge moving from one country to another because there's different expectations there. Then not only do we have the different countries and different leaders, we also have different religion. So you move from one city to another, you may be expected to change your outfit, where if you're a lady, you may now have to cover your hair. If you're a man, you may dress in certain ways or not say certain things. So the religion also has caused a lot of violence, where we now have clashes between the Muslims And the Christians, the northern part is made up of mainly Islams, because as you move up, you're going towards the Middle East, where you eventually get into Saudi Arabia and all these places. So, but as you move down, you have predominantly Christian, but even the Christian area is also sprinkled with some traditional. My parents have some Christian beliefs, and they also have some traditional beliefs. So Nigeria, as you see there, is split sort of midway. So the northern part of Nigeria, which will be interesting and very important in what I'm going to discuss, the northern part of Nigeria is predominantly Muslim, and this area here is where you have Boko Haram, where you hear all this violence. They operate from this area here, and they move into another country when they're being chased by the military guys in Nigeria. Then they move here, they come back, kidnap people, and move on. So this northern part is predominantly Muslim, while the southern part here is predominantly Christian. And the president that rules the country kind of sets the pace as to what religion they want to be reflected with. We now have a Muslim president, and most of the things they require for us to do has to do with his beliefs and their tradition as Muslims.
What kind of stuff do you have to do if you're a Nigerian citizen like that?
For you, just stay away from the north. I'm kidding, but you sometimes, if you go, for instance, if I go with my wife up north, you can't do things like hold hands and some predominant. If you go further to the north, she may be required to cover her hair. Prayers on Friday, your movement is restricted. You can't buy pork. For those of you that like barbecue pork, you won't have it sold there. So there are some things they change. I never checked, you know. So this has caused a lot of trouble for many years now, which again will come into my discussion as I move on. So we've talked about size, we've talked about different countries, we've talked about different religion, and as if that wasn't enough, we now have different languages there. So more than 15,000 to 2,000 languages spoken in the continent alone. It's not unusual, even in a small country like Nigeria, which is the most populated black country in the world. We have different languages. My wife and I come from two different cities, like you have Memphis and West Memphis, and we don't speak the same language. I don't understand her, she doesn't understand me. Literally, I don't mean that in terms of, so people are surprised when they say, what do you speak at home? Say English. Because, well, I understand her language, she doesn't understand me. Sometimes I fake with her that I don't even understand English, so that if I want to get away from doing stuff. So in Nigeria alone, we speak about 525 languages. The last time I read that Garrett had me read something from the scriptures, I read this language here. So from Yoruba, I actually speak about 3 or 4 of the major languages from Nigeria, which gives me some advantages when I move around to preach. And also a language can really open doors. If you speak the language of the people where you go, they kind of welcome you and accept you as one of theirs. The history of the church in Nigeria is very interesting. It actually speaks to the history of the church in Africa. This ex-policeman called C.A.O.A.C.N. stumbled across I think it was a World Bible School booklet, but he stumbled across one of those things and studied by himself and realized what he needed to do to be a Christian. So he asked his friend to just baptize him. Then he taught his friend the truth, and then he baptized his friend also, before even the missionary came from America. So he started the church, or he planted the church, and by the time the missionary came, we already have quite a number of congregations thriving with the truth, which speaks to the fact that if you have the Bible with you, you can establish one true church without the false doctrine. So he didn't need any extra teaching from books, and just straight from the Bible, and the church started from there. In Nigeria, we have about 77,000 congregations right now, and close to 1.7 million Christians. It has the most number of churches in the continent of Africa. And you've not actually experienced worship until you go worship in a congregation where they're singing to God be the glory in different languages. I mean, it's an experience that you should live for. So we would like you all to come and join us and take a trip there with us. It's very fascinating to just worship where the singing is literally just like you would have on the Pentecost day. So there are many benefits evangelizing Africa and investing in taking the gospel to Africa. One of the benefits is that in terms of population, it is the second largest continent in terms of population, just second to Asia. So if we can get that continent converted, that's a lot of Christians we can harvest there. So it has a lot of people that do not still know the gospel, and many rural areas have not even heard of the truth. So the field there is very fertile, just looking for workers. Also, in terms of growth, it is projected that Africa will overtake all the continent in terms of church growth in the year 2045. So the rapid growth of the church there is just amazing, where it's not unusual to have a church planted every month and they thrive, not just establish and they die. So there are people still hungry for the truth. The truth still appears new to them, and they are very, they cherish it when it's being brought to them. And this is very impressive considering some of the things the continent as a whole has been going through. It's considered a very poor country, third world country, and not because of the resources are not there, but because you have leaders who have plundered the country and just stolen from them. So despite the poor nature of the country, an average African will live off $10 a week in terms of feeding, and it's not unusual for people to go without meals, yet their faith is still very strong. And many Christians from United States are also getting so interested in coming to Africa to evangelize, but they're coming with false doctrine. So we are battling issues of poverty, we're also battling issues of false doctrine from not just United States, from also Europe. In many churches now, we are seeing issues, cases where women are being ordained as elders, and you have women preachers, of course. So there are many false doctrine creeping in, and which is one of the things we go in there to try to diffuse or fight. And a lot of persecutions going on, mainly the Muslims attacking the Christians. I went to Muslim school for high school, so I kind of know a little bit of the tradition and even Arabic. It's their method of evangelizing, they know if they preach to you, it's not something they can get you to get converted. So they have only two methods of making more Muslims, either through birth, and they do that a lot because you're allowed to marry 4 wives as a Muslim, so you have many children. So your children become Muslims, not just the Muslims, even typically in Africa, you can marry many wives. My grandfather married about 13 wives. So he had more than 43 children. He lived to be 92 years old, which says maybe more wives, you live longer. But Pam won't let me do that yet. We're still negotiating. So it's not unusual to have, I was saying, so either they convert by birth or they convert by force, where if they have you preaching the gospel, you may either renounce the truth or you may be beheaded or killed. So despite this persecution, it has not stopped. Even while we're there, there were some riots and upheaval while we're there. The Muslims we heard they were attacking some Christians nearby the places we were working. So despite these three things we are confronted with, the church is still growing and the Christians are still very faithful. So this is typical worship buildings we have in Africa. As you can see, sometimes that building was burnt down after a while by the Boko Haram people in the north. So Christians meet in homes, or they meet in incomplete buildings, uncompleted buildings, as you have on the top right here, for worship, which is very sufficient. My first church I worshiped was in this way. But if you notice here, we meet every day for worship. We come in the morning at 5 in the morning to church building for morning prayers, and sometimes we come back at night. So our worship, our meeting is typically every day for us to come, start the day and end the day worshiping. In churches in the United States and also in Africa, the idea of church growth, there are several ways we've adopted how to grow our churches, not just in Africa, but also in America here. Churches grow in various ways. For one way we grow our churches is by converting our children. Now, whatever I see in blue there is a method we also adopt. So in the United States, in the last couple of years, churches have been growing just by our children getting converted. Now, I'm not attempting to criticize any method or endorse any method, but it's the reality. I just want you to judge by yourself if it's a very effective way of growing our churches. So we grow churches when our children get converted. We also do that sometimes in America here by inviting people over to come to worship, and hopefully the gospel may diffuse into them through osmosis. A lot of times our churches grow by church split. We benefit from a church splitting and the members come here. Sometimes we hope our churches will grow when we have a lot of social activities to have people coming. Now, I have my reservation about some of this method, how effective they are. But a lot of our churches depend on if we do some activities, we'll have children coming or outsiders coming, and hopefully we can preach to them. The limitation with number 4 is that we cannot outdo the denomination in terms of recreation. We are sort of restricted by the scriptures to the extent we can go. So when we compete with them by activities, we have soccer team or some other things we do, we can never win souls better than they do. So if this is our method, we need to reconsider if it's very effective. Sometimes we grow our churches by expectation. Hopefully they will hear about us and just come visit, or by proclamation. Now this is also done in Africa, TV, radio, door-to-door evangelism. We do a lot of door-to-door evangelism, which you'll see soon. And number 7 is what I've noticed happening recently. I call this redoctrination, where you find out some churches now have issues putting the sign, the Church of Christ, because in their opinion, it puts people away. So they will say Oliver Creek or the church, because that name, Church of Christ, seems to scare people away. I mean, I don't succumb to that. I don't agree with that. Or we now say, let's don't discuss controversial issues. We're losing members. We're losing the young ones when we talk about something. Was that me? I'm sorry. Okay, I thought somebody was telling me time was off. A dog collar. So sometimes we think, let's leave out some of these controversial issues because the young ones are leaving us and we don't want to scare them away. Or in an attempt to grow the church. Then there are instances we say, let's just try a little bit of everything. Hopefully, we can get the church to grow. So church growth is an issue, both in America here and in Africa. But the question is, are we willing to sacrifice the truth at all cost at the expense of growing the church? The method we're trying to teach Africans, and hopefully people we work with, is one of the most effective ways to grow church is to build relationship. And I am pro-relationship because that was what we lost in the garden. And if I'm to define Christianity, I would define it with just that word, relationship. So our method of growing churches or evangelizing has to include forming a relationship with the people we talk to. So that is what we call the Jesus method. Now, I'm not saying the other methods are bad, but I think in this day, you can hardly get anybody to listen to you or to get converted if they don't think you are invested in their lives. So we are trying to use this method to teach Africans to move slightly away from the door-to-door knocking to where they now build. We already do that anyway. We're a cultural society. So let's build on that in a way to evangelize. Now, I did say we focus so much on church growth that sometimes we sacrifice the truth. So I was reading a book by F. Lagarde Smith, and I like this saying. He said, when numerical growth becomes more important than faithfulness to the word, you can be sure that it is no longer God who is adding souls to the church. It is not church growth like Pentecost, but church growth at any cost. So we have to be careful, even when we go as missionaries, not to think our work should be measured based on the number of baptisms we get. Because as Paul said, we only plant. Our members may water, but God is who gives the increase. So when we go, the tendency is to think, well, we've not succeeded until we give a report of 3,000 souls converted. And that was not our goal. And that should not be anybody's goal in preaching or in evangelizing. So this is what we propose from what you've heard. We propose that with your help here, we can teach Africans to evangelize Africa. That's the basis of our work we do, where if we get the resources, we can do the job. We need Americans, we need the Europeans, we need the help, but we should be the one expected to go in and do the job. It's our responsibility. And also, if you must evangelize effectively, you cannot ignore using the Jesus method. You have to build a relationship. And there's a reason why we think number one is very, very effective. First of all, we think if Africans do that, we have a language advantage, where we already know the language and we can easily gain their trust with that. We have a cultural advantage. There are many cultural issues that missionaries have when they come over there. For instance, you don't receive things with your left hand. You don't look at the grown-up, make eye contact. When they talk to you, you have to look down. So I was very surprised when I came here and I heard a father telling his son, look at me when I'm talking to you. I said, wow, should he look at you in the eye? He's not supposed to. So there are some of those little things, cultural things that Americans come and we just scratch our head and say, okay, they don't understand the culture. And you have to learn. But we don't have that issue here. So when we go, we just fit in easily. So it's more efficient in terms of cost-wise. If an American should come over there with us, I have to provide security for him. That's cost, so that he doesn't get kidnapped or violence or all those things. We know the needs of the people. I'll skip number 5. It's our responsibility. It's our job. We have to do it because we owe it to our people. And also, it makes us grow when we learn to plant churches. We are very grateful for what Americans have done for many years and are still doing. A lot of times we feel that it's time for us to grow, to take the responsibility. So, that being the background, what did we do this year? Well, our mission work was to evangelize rural areas and the Muslim-dominated areas in Africa by personal Bible study and in local denominational churches. The plan was, number one, we're spreading the gospel in several communities through open-air campaigns, door-to-door preaching, community evangelism in predominantly Muslim community. And we're reaching communities by building relationship. We also provide medical assistance, the Jesus method. We meet their needs so that we can provide them with the gospel. Assistance to the poor, those in rural areas, orphans and widows. We train preachers how to be evangelistic, and also we equipped preachers to do local mission work like CPR, I'll talk about it later on, and first aid, to be first aid responders. In Nigeria, students are required to take either Bible knowledge in school or Islamic knowledge. So you either take both. So one thing we're trying to do is to train as many preachers to become teachers in high schools. So when they teach the students Bible knowledge, which is a course you have to take, they can also slip in the truth. So we're getting a bunch of people from preachers training school, helping them to get their education diploma so they can teach in these high schools. Also church planting and church growth. So before we left the United States, we got some donations from places like Lebanon gave us about 500 boxes of masks. It was during the pandemic period. We got also 5,000 sachets of peanut butter. Getting protein-rich food can be very expensive. So the staple food in Africa is mainly starch, carbohydrate, which leads to disease like kwashiorkor and some other things. So anything with protein is pretty expensive. So we got Lebanon, my students, high school students and college students helped. We got some peanut butter. We got hand washing soap. And I approached some medical eye clinic and doctors here. They gave us a pair of eyeglasses. Some dentists here gave us toothbrushes, floss, and toothpaste. So armed with this, we set our mission. And we also got some help from members of the church here. Of course, Oliver Creek helped us a lot financially with buying tickets and lodging. And also Brother Ed spent, how many months was it? Spent about 3 months recording sermons on CDs for us to take over there with us. We cherish things like that. So we're very grateful. And the school of preaching, the preaching school there, we're very thankful to have such things. Some things that we often take for granted here, I mean, they just appear like gold over there. He also gave us some Bibles that we took with us. We didn't take all because they were pretty heavy, but we took some with us to pass out. Then we purchased some blood pressure monitors and some diabetes glucose test strips. Excuse me. So,
how did you get all that up there? Did you pack suitcases or
yep,
ahead?
Yep, suitcases. I thought of swimming across, but it was going to be a long swim. So it was expensive because we had to go through airline. But right now we're discussing with Delta Airline. One of my students, her dad is a doctor, so we're hoping Delta will be able to, they offer to ship some of the peanut butter. We still have some. They'll ship it over for us in December. But traveling with 4 people and 50 pounds, I was entitled to 100 pounds of weight. We couldn't take most of the things. But they saw us coming in at the airport, and they knew that something was wrong because we had suitcases going. So yes, it was pretty difficult to move. And they lost our luggage when we got there. So, So we flew 12 hours from Memphis, from Atlanta actually, and landed in Lagos. Then our second trip was within Nigeria. We went, you remember when I said the northern part? We've moved from Lagos to the southeast where we have a lot of Christians. The church started in this area. Then we moved to the northern area, which is the state capital. Then the last trip, I was supposed to go to Kenya after this trip, but there was an outbreak of corona, so I had to postpone that trip. So hopefully I'm going this December to continue with the trip. Let me say this quickly. The mission work we're doing is not just for June and July. When we go equipped these members on this team and we come back, they continue from June all the way to June next year. So it's still going on as we speak. So we just don't do it for 2 months and we all go to our various homes. They continue doing the work that we established all the way till when we see them in June, then we regroup and make more plans. So it's a whole year's mission work. We just are not there for the whole year. So the first place we went to here is called Uyo. I'm going to end this very soon. So the church started here. And while we were there, we organized some preachers training. We talked to the preachers about how to evangelize, and we trained them in basically how to preach in community. We taught the Bible. And most importantly, we talked to them about their health, which a lot of preachers there do not just preachers, members do not take good care of their health. One of the stories I tell, or one of the analogies I tell people is, when you as a preacher falls sick, the devil just doesn't take you out of the field. He takes you and the members who are praying for you, your spouse is also. So if you're a military man, you would rather injure someone than kill the enemy, because when you injure your enemy, you're taking 3 people from the war, because it needs 2 people to take care of the sick person. So when you are sick as a preacher, your work suffers a lot, so you need to take care of your health, even more than the members. So many of the preachers, they were in pretty bad shape. They don't have retirement, they don't have leaves, they work 7 days a week. So I'm hoping I'm not saying something the elders will expect Garrett's to do from now. So it's a pretty rough job over there. So we talked to them about the need to take good care of their health. Then we went for prison ministry here. And this is the controller of the prison, the guy in charge of the prison. So I went there one Sunday to preach. I was doing that before I even came, while I was in college with some of my partners. So we had some people, 9 souls, come to get baptized. And when we were ready to get them baptized, we heard there was no water in the prison. Why was there no water? Well, the generator that pumps the water was not working. Why is it not working? They don't have diesel. Okay, so we had to give them money to buy diesel to pump water for the entire prison just to get that baptism done. As I've told people, I'm hoping they will name a cell after me, because I supplied water. I mean, Moses didn't even do that. Well, just kidding. So in the end, we trained some preachers, preaching school we trained, and they were the recipient of Brother Ed's CD that he got. So we went around to some churches that were established. I preached in some of these churches. This is a new church that was established by one of our partners, CJ George. As you can see, it's not completed yet. And we went there preaching. We established about 3 churches in the span of 6 months there. So we went there to encourage them and to preach in some of those churches. Then one of the things we did was, when you're a preacher in Africa, you're not just a preacher. You are the first responder, you are the medical doctor, you are the counselor, you are all things to all men. So if your neighbor who is not a Christian needs help, he's going to be told, go to the preacher, he's going to solve your problem. And one issue we've been having in third world countries has been issues of people just having heart problem and just dying, because CPR is not something that we do over there. One of the problems or reason is because, 1, education, but 2, the idea of doing the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, the belief of your evil spirit will come into me if I'm doing or I'll give you my evil spirit. So it's a taboo that doesn't happen over there. So we had to correct some of those things, because your people are dying for something that is just easy to do. So we talked about that, and we trained the preachers and also the members of the church I'm a licensed CPR trainer, so I could certify them. So we train them in this, and this is CJ, as we call him, teaching a group of people. And these are some of the people that got trained with their certificates. And Pam also spoke to them about their health. So that was one thing we did on one day. And the hope is that the neighbors will be attracted to the church. Remember, we meet every day. So if your preacher is well equipped with some of these things and some things he knows about your health, hopefully you can come to church, even if you're not a Christian, to seek help from him. And by doing that, he can form a relationship with you and hopefully get you to become a Christian. Then we had the health fair, where we had members of the community come to check their blood pressure, eye test, insulin, breast cancer screening, and we visited some elderly in the villages and just encouraged them. We also went to some hospitals to train their medical staff on CPR. And these are ministers that we trained the day before the health fair. We trained all these folks to be pseudo doctors and pseudo opticians. So they carried out the test, members of the community coming, and at the end we gave them some health vitamins and some medications that they could go home with. Then we also passed out some glasses, reading glasses at the end of this for them to, after they did the eye test. But the cool thing was we did this in stations. So you move from one station to the next, and before you leave, the last station happened to be a station with a preacher. So you sit down with the preacher or the preachers and they talk to you about the gospel and just pray with you and get your contact information and hopefully to continue the relationship from there. So we have a group of, we have some partners that we work with, and what they do is we get a bus, load Christians or members of the church right after church, and we go into villages and we do door-to-door evangelism, preach to people for a whole week. We're in that village, sleeping in tents or houses that we can get, and we're preaching for the whole week. And with this effort, we're able to get about 4 churches planted. You see some buses coming, we'll just invade your village with the truth. And people responded very well. We got some baptisms and we got churches established and we visited some of those churches. Now, when I say we, take note, it might not necessarily be me present, but the group that we train, just like some things are going on right now as we speak. So from there, we went to the capital of the country, which is in a Muslim-dominated area. And we had the medical outreach also that we had in the south, almost duplicating what we just did in the south. We did the same thing in the north, but this time we did it with a lot of care because the Muslims are not very happy when these things happen. However, we were able to get a Muslim chief in a town. We checked his blood and we noticed he had some blood heart issues, and we gave him some free medication, and he allowed us to preach in his town. We just could not condemn Islam. We could preach the truth, but don't say anything against the Muslims, which was rather very impressive. Once again, forming that relationship. So we had a lot of turnout. People came in for the same thing that happened in the south, CPR classes. We had this man here, we found out he had a blood pressure of over 200, high blood pressure of over 200. I mean, the doctor there said he cannot live until we get him medication. So we had a lot of people that were walking around with stroke level high blood pressure. And this is our youngest participant in our CPR class. So it was pretty interesting. And the interesting thing was, it was about to rain, and it actually rained, but the turnout was extremely encouraging. And these are some of the women that received some of the gift items. We gave medical gift items. And this is the station for the preacher. So before you leave, you sit with the preacher, and the preacher talks to you and kind of counsel you. Then in the north there was this radio program called Let the Bible Speak that airs every Sunday. So we wake up in the morning once a month. We get at 7 a.m. and people call in with questions about the Bible. Then the other Sundays we pre-record what we have to preach, and it's listened to all over the country. This radio program has been responsible for the conversion of many denominations. So I'm not saying denominational members, but actually an entire church took down their sign, and the whole church got converted into the true church, just listening to the radio program. Some of them started challenging their pastors and reverend, and he had to quit. So they took over the church. And sometimes the reverend or pastor himself gets converted, and the whole church joins. So this is one of the church, and this is another church there. So the sign was taken down, and the Church of Christ sign was put up. This is the building where they have the Bible class. Then this is where they worship. These are the reverend and pastors that got converted. So we turned the worship area. During the week, we have a preaching school where we're now trying to train the pastors and the preachers and the reverend on the truth, where they can now effectively preach the truth. So from there, my team, and I couldn't go here, my team went to Nairobi, Kenya, and they were involved with Healing Hands and other projects, helping to put up church buildings, working in schools, and holding lectureship with Christians and church leaders there. One of the problems we're having in areas like this is some Christians over here are establishing preaching schools back there. And those schools are now releasing preachers who are preaching wrong error. In fact, the school is encouraging the wrong error. So when they release the preachers go to establish churches where people are dancing in churches and speaking in tongues, and elders are women, etc. So we go there regularly to try to correct some of these errors by holding lectureship and workshop, and also encouraging the churches. All those that work in this mission work, one of the things we stress is they do not receive any salary. So whatever support we get for this mission work goes straight into the work. None of the preachers get any financial support from this, because most of them are professionals and they have full-time jobs anyway. So the support we got from Oliver Creek, which was invaluable, helped pay for transport, feeding, and lodging, and is still paying for that right now as they keep going with mission work. Our dream is to establish a radio station in the manner of 640 that we have here. It's never been done before in the entire continent, a 24-hour radio station. And it's not too expensive in terms of American dollars, where all through the day they would hear just Christian a cappella singing, preaching from churches, just similar to what you hear from 640. We'll have financial experts come talk about finances. We'll have marriage counselors and all things like that that would help the Christian. That is our long-term dream, and we are hoping somebody will probably help at Oliver Creek and just write a check that will cover that. So hopefully at the end of this, and there's a plate back there, I will accept the check. So we really would like to do that. And the radio station will be heard not just in Nigeria, it will be heard all over the continent, because from what I learned, we can even put it online and they can log into here. With a radio station, unlike TV, you don't need to have electricity. You can use the batteries. You can listen to it as you drive to work. So this is one thing we're really hoping we can get done, and it will be a very effective tool for us to spread the gospel. Boko Haram cannot bomb the radio station because it won't be located in the north if we do it anyway. So we would like to get a truck to move some of those areas. We also will be going this December with some more blood pressure monitor, glucose test strip, school materials. And it's very important when I talk about educating or trying to educate the high school students. Because if you change the life of just one person, when I went 2 years ago, I held an ACT class, and one of the students there made a 33 on the ACT. He got admitted into Hampton University in Virginia, where he's going to study computer science. When he gets done, he's going to go home and use the training and probably the financial stability he has acquired here to change his community. And I won't take the credit, but imagine if we could do that to many of the students where we train them. You just need to change one life in order to change a community. And I'll tell you that because I'm a recipient of that blessing. I got converted by my high school economics teacher, who is one of our team members here. And through that conversion and being able to come to the United States, I've been able to divert some of the blessings of God back to my community. So I can't imagine if we can just change 5 lives and give them the training they need in high school and college, and they go back as medical doctors to their churches. You will change an entire village by doing that. So we are very interested in having college scholarship fund for poor and orphaned Christians so that they can get a brighter future. So these are the people I call my team members. As you can see, most of them are already professionals in their area, and they're very, very enthusiastic about spreading the gospel. I'm sure you've all heard this story by J.M. McKellen, where he was a missionary, I think in Japan, if I remember, and his supporting congregation asked him to come back home. The story goes that the letter they wrote to him said, "We have some heathens at home. Why should you be outside preaching?" And he wrote them back and said, "Say not the heathens are at home. Beyond we have no call. For why should we be blessed alone? The gospel is for all." The blessed gospel is for all. The gospel is for all. Where sin has gone must go his grace. The gospel is for all. So we are very encouraged by the elders, and we're thankful to the members. This work would not have been possible if you all did not participate with us. Now, you may not be able to come with us to Africa or Nigeria, but you'll be envious if I tell you, while you were here in your 95 degrees, we were there in 75 degrees that summer. So, just saying, it's not as hot as you think. But you may not be able to come with us, but there are many ways you can support. Like Brother Ed did some recordings. There are many ways you can touch a soul. There are many lives that you may not even know that you will have changed just through your support and through your prayers. And we are, I think that's it. So we thank the elders and everybody for this work. And if you have any question or something you want to clarify, please let us know. So thank you for supporting us, and we hope we'll continue to get that support from you all. Yes?
You took all the numbers off that one slide. Say how much out loud it would be for a radio station, because who knows, maybe we got a rich brother or sister in here right now that might hear that number.
Well, it will cost upwards of about 100 million naira, which is $120,000 in American money.
How much?
$120,000 in American money.
20,000 or 100?
$120,000. The cost of, $120,000. But as I said, God's going to cover the equipment. The workers there will be working for free, the way we estimated everything. The only probably paid person will be the security man and the project manager or something. But we're going to have preachers coming to preach. So we appeal to you, if you have a trust fund that you don't know what to do with, or an inheritance that just came your way, I'm open. Building and equipment. Now, the most difficult thing would be the politics. Remember, we are being ruled by a Muslim president, and even they don't have a radio station. So we had to make it in a subtle way, not to call it a Christian radio station. Pam suggested we call it the Oliver Creek and leave it there. They won't know what it is, so. So yes, just the building and the equipment it costs.
Not fit to do that for that here, probably.
No, you can't do that here. Yes, please, any question? I think I've made it go for time. I'm hoping you have tons. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So if there, with the amount of languages you mentioned are just in Nigeria alone, and all these different churches, this might be a dumb question.
No, it's not. No question is dumb.
Is there like a bunch of different people all speaking, like translating in different languages, or like is it one centralized kind of language that?
Well, that's actually a good question.
Emmanuel, can you repeat the question for the people at home?
Okay, the question is that with all these different languages, do you have people interpreting, doing service, or? Well, it depends. In some, the official language in Nigeria is English because we were colonized by the British. But we have our own form of English called Pidgin English. But if you go to a rural area where you have people that don't understand that are not fluent in English, it's not unusual to have somebody standing to preach while an interpreter interprets what is being preached. And sometimes you have 3 interpreters that when you say something is interpreted by 3 people, the preacher will forget where he was by the time it comes to his turn. So we have interpreters, which makes sometimes our worship a little bit long. We can start worship at 8 o'clock and end at 3 o'clock. And nobody complains. The preacher preaches for about 2 hours sometimes. So Garrett is giving you guys a good deal here. Yes, sir.
Is there any difficulty with all the different languages that you mentioned with the Bibles? I don't know if you have like Bibles that are just in English, or do you have other translations of the Bible that many people can read?
Okay, so the question is, as a result of the different languages, do we have issues with Bibles and interpretation of Bibles? We actually have Bibles in different languages, that in the 4 major languages. And if you don't, all you have to do is read the Bible and the interpreter will interpret it for you. So it's always sometimes difficult because you have to play it in your head. Even with me, with the different languages I speak, when I listen to people, I have to interpret it sort of and say, okay, maybe this is what it's saying before I even respond, so I don't say something wrong. So yes, we have Bibles in those languages. Yes?
Another question is communion. Is it done in a similar way that we do it here in America, or is it more of a meal in the Lord's Supper?
Both. You finish the communion, then you stay back for the meal. So the meal is done sometimes after church, where families just do potluck and you just stay back and eat. In most instances, we don't have restaurants that we have to go to after church. So we just, sometimes the church is too far away. So when you come to church, you want to have lunch there. So we sit back and we have our own, the real breaking of bread, not the communion wafers, where you actually eat the meal. So. Yes, another question, please. Please ask. This may be your only chance of talking to a real African.
There's some practical things that we could be doing other than giving our trust funds away.
So,
you mentioned him doing some CDs and stuff, glucose tests. What are like some more practical things we could be doing to help aid those efforts?
oh, I was hoping nobody would ask that because, well, you could find somebody over there to write to establish a relationship and encourage, send. World Bible School does that already, but these are some things you could do. Some of we once got some shoes from members of the church, students. We couldn't ship them there, so we sold the shoes here, raised $5,000, and bought uniform and shoes for an entire school there, which a lot of them did not have that. And it's funny because lack of uniform has been traced to increase in HIV, because if you don't have uniforms, you don't go to school, and you may get promiscuous or something like that. So things like books, clothes, items like that, we can always find a way to ship it over there to them. But writing, forming a relationship is one way you can help also. But that trust fund is more important. Thank you all so much. If you don't mind, can we just offer a word of prayer, please? Father, we thank you so much for Oliver Craig, for the elders, for the ministers, and for the members. Thank you for blessing them with such big hearts, for them to be willing to invest in your kingdom. Thank you, dear Lord, for entrusting the work of your kingdom into our hands, because we know you could have done it by yourself without our help, but you thought of it wise enough and thought of us responsible enough for us to take this work into the world. Help us not to let you down. Be with us as we go home, O God, and continue to bless us that even in our neighborhood, we would find people that we can touch, form a relationship with, and change their lives for good. Father, your word said it. The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Stimulate in us the hearts to be workers, and help us not to be tired until every soul on earth has heard your word. Take us home safely, God, and be with us for the rest of the week. We ask by faith in your Son's holy name. Amen.